Welcome to the silent betrayals. Have you ever been in a situation where someone carefully sets a trap for you, creating a web of deceit over weeks, just to make you ruin your own relationship? If you haven't, consider yourself lucky. Why am I saying this? Because I've been there, and I think it almost destroyed my relationship. My name is Rose. I'm 26, and I have a story that might make you think twice before casually mocking someone. I'm here to vent, but I'd also love to hear any advice you might have. I've been in a serious relationship with my boyfriend, Jack, who is also 26, for 5 years now. We met on Tinder, discovered we went to the same college, and instantly clicked. I truly believe Jack was the person I'd marry and spend the rest of my life with. Jack has always been a great guy, kind, caring, and always looking out for me. But one day, in a moment of playful teasing, I made a harmless joke, calling him weak. I never imagined that one comment would set off a chain of revenge and deceit that could tear apart everything we had built. Now, you're probably wondering why I mocked him in the first place. Honestly, it was meant to be a lighthearted joke. Jack has always been the type to go out of his way to make me happy, which earned him a reputation among our friends as being a bit of a softie. Even our friends would tease me playfully, calling him a pushover. Jack never seemed to mind. He'd laugh it off and even join in on the jokes. I guess, in some ways, I started taking his love and devotion for granted. Jack was like a rock in my life, always there to support me and putting my needs before his own. It's easy to get comfortable in a relationship, isn't it? You start to believe things will always stay the same, that your partner will always be by your side, no matter what. Then one day, everything changed. It started out like any other day. Jack and I were chatting, joking around about something or someone. I honestly don't even remember the details. In the middle of our banter, I playfully teased him, saying he should watch his back because I might leave him for someone else. It was meant to be a lighthearted remark, just another playful jab during our laughter. Jack chuckled and said I'd never leave him. In response, I pushed further, saying I just might, adding that he was weak and a bit of a softie, so he'd better keep an eye on me. I thought it was all in good fun, just jokes between us. But Jack's reaction surprised me. Instead of laughing it off like he usually would, he fell silent. The air shifted, and I could feel a subtle tension building. My words had struck a nerve, awakening something in him that I hadn't noticed before. Looking back now, I realize how hurtful my comment must have been. Jack had always gone above and beyond to make me happy, showing me love in ways both big and small. Calling him weak and a softie, even as a joke, dismissed all of that. It was a wake-up call for both of us. I hadn't understood the weight my words carried or the impact they could have on our relationship. What I didn't know was that this seemingly innocent banter would set off a chain of events that would change everything between us. After that conversation, things started to feel off. Jack wasn't as protective or attentive as he used to be, a big shift from how he had always been. He used to have my back in every situation, sometimes even to the point of being overbearing. He'd check in about my day, make sure I got home safely if he wasn't around, and always paid attention to the little things. But after that day, something changed. He stopped checking in as often. His texts became fewer, and our calls grew more sporadic. It felt like he was pulling away, leaving a gap between us that hadn't been there before. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just work stress or something temporary, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I started missing the way he used to hold me close in crowds, always making sure I felt safe. It was like Jack had lost that protective instinct, and without it, I felt exposed, as though a safety net had been pulled away. I couldn't help but wonder if my teasing had driven him away, if my words had somehow caused the shift in our relationship. I noticed that things had indeed changed between us, but I didn't know how to bridge the growing gap, or if it was even possible anymore. Jack and I lived together, and our routine had always worked well. He handled most of the household chores. Even though he earned significantly more than I did, he genuinely enjoyed cooking, cleaning, and doing the dishes, especially since he knew how much I disliked those tasks. It was something I had come to rely on, and it felt like his way of showing love. But after that playful conversation, his behavior at home shifted noticeably. He stopped taking the initiative to do the chores he used to enjoy. Cooking became less frequent, cleaning wasn't as thorough, and the dishes started piling up in the sink. At first, I brushed it off, thinking he was busy or distracted by work. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that something was different. Jack seemed less invested in our home life, as though he had pulled back from the small acts of care that used to bring us closer. I tried to pick up the slack, but it wasn't the same. I missed the way he'd surprise me with a delicious dinner or clean the apartment just to make me smile. It felt like part of our connection had faded, leaving a void, not just in our shared responsibilities, but in our relationship as a whole. I'll admit, at first, I felt a strange sense of relief when Jack became less overbearing. He wasn't fussing over every detail of my whereabouts, and it felt liberating to go out with my friends without constantly updating him or worrying about his reactions. At first, I embraced the newfound freedom. I could plan spontaneous weekend getaways or spend the night with friends without feeling suffocated by messages or calls from Jack. It felt like a breath of fresh air to have that space and independence. I could focus more on myself, pursue hobbies, and reconnect with friends without the guilt or obligation of constantly checking in. It was as though a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I appreciated this new dynamic in our relationship. However, as time went on, I began to realize that this freedom came at a cost. The lack of communication and engagement from Jack started to feel like indifference. I missed the times when he'd show concern or take an interest in my plans. What once felt liberating, the absence of his messages or calls, now left a void in our connection. I started to question whether this shift in our dynamic was healthy for our relationship. While I enjoyed the independence, I also longed for the closeness and intimacy that had once defined our bond. Jack's behavior continued to change, and I noticed the absence of the little gestures that used to mean so much. For example, he stopped opening the car door for me, something he had always done, without fail. It may seem minor, but those small acts of chivalry symbolized his care and attention. There was also a noticeable shift in his attitude toward finances. Jack earned significantly more than I did and had always taken care of our financial needs without hesitation. If I needed money for shopping or other expenses, he provided it without complaint. It was a comfortable arrangement that worked well for us. But after that pivotal moment in our relationship, his generosity waned. He became more cautious with his spending, and I found myself needing to ask for financial support, something I had never had to do before. This created a sense of unease and dependency that I wasn't used to. It felt like I had lost not just his emotional support, but also the financial stability he once provided. The absence of those small but meaningful gestures, combined with the change in his financial support, deepened the growing distance between us. As this distance grew, I found myself seeking validation and attention elsewhere. What started as innocent conversations and harmless flirting in social settings or online soon became a temporary distraction from the emptiness I felt in my relationship with Jack. I found myself seeking these interactions more frequently. The attention and compliments I received from others seemed to fill a void that was growing deeper within me. It felt like I was craving that sense of being desired and appreciated, something I felt was missing in my relationship with Jack. You might wonder why I didn't just talk to Jack about how I was feeling. The truth is, I tried, but whenever I brought up my concerns, Jack would brush them off or even gaslight me into thinking I was overthinking or projecting my insecurities onto our relationship. He invalidated my feelings, made me doubt myself, and left me questioning whether I was being irrational. This only made things worse. I felt unheard and misunderstood, which pushed me further towards seeking validation outside our relationship. As more time passed, the distance between Jack and me seemed to grow. Despite my attempts to repair our relationship, no matter how hard I tried to communicate or reconnect, it felt like I was hitting an impenetrable wall. The frustration and loneliness I felt reached a breaking point. Eventually, this led to a moment of weakness where my harmless flirting crossed a line. It became full-on cheating. It was a mistake I deeply regretted, and I knew it was wrong. It happened only once, but the guilt still weighs heavily on me. What made matters worse was that I couldn't bring myself to confess to Jack. I was ashamed and terrified of his reaction. I knew the truth would devastate him, and I couldn't bear to see the pain it would cause, so I kept it hidden. The full weight of how far Jack and I had drifted apart hit me when I found out about his major promotion and the new house he had purchased without telling me. The way I learned about it made the realization even more painful. I still remember the shock and humiliation I felt when mutual friends casually mentioned Jack's promotion and his new house during a conversation. I was blindsided, not just by the news itself, but by the fact that Jack hadn't thought it was important to share these significant milestones with me, his partner. What stung even more was that we had always talked about buying a house together. It was a shared dream, something we had envisioned as a couple. To discover that Jack had gone ahead and made such a life-altering decision on his own felt like a betrayal of our shared aspirations. I decided to confront Jack, hoping it could be a turning point, a chance for us to address the growing distance and work toward a solution. But that confrontation only shattered any remaining illusions I had about our relationship. I realized then how much he had been pushing me away, gaslighting me, and making me doubt my own feelings and perceptions. What was meant to be a moment of clarity instead confirmed just how broken things had become between us. However, I'm sure you've already guessed that the confrontation didn't go as I had hoped. Jack's response was unexpected and deeply hurtful. He accused me of disrespecting and insulting him, using that as justification for his changed behavior. He argued that he had always been the one making an effort in our relationship and that he saw no point in continuing to try when his efforts were unappreciated. What hurt the most was when Jack revealed that he knew about my infidelity. It was like a dagger to my heart, realizing that he had found out about my mistake and had been silently holding it against me. His anger was palpable, and after expressing his frustrations, he stormed off, leaving me feeling utterly broken. Now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. It feels as though I'm losing, or have already lost, the relationship that once meant everything to me. Yes, I made a mistake, but it was born out of feeling neglected and unappreciated. Jack may have fallen short in some ways, but he was a good partner, and I never wanted him to stop caring or making an effort for us. So here I am, reaching out to Reddit for advice. What should I do? Is there any way to salvage what's left of our relationship? Is it possible to get Jack to forgive me? I just want my old Jack back. A lot of my friends suggested couples therapy and individual therapy, and I appreciate those thoughtful recommendations. It's something I've been seriously considering, as I realize the need to work on myself and our relationship. Regarding the issue of financial dependence, I fully acknowledge that relying entirely on Jack was not the wisest decision. I work in a field that doesn't pay well, and since Jack was more financially stable, he took on more of the responsibilities. Over time, it became a pattern I grew accustomed to. However, I realize now that I should have been more proactive in being financially responsible and independent. Jack has always been more financially savvy, and because he was the man in our relationship, I often left those things to him. Some people say that cheating is a deal breaker, and while I understand that perspective, I also believe every relationship is unique. Cheating was a terrible mistake on my part, and I deeply regret it. However, I also believe in forgiveness and second chances, especially when genuine love and commitment are involved. I truly believe Jack will forgive me. We've been together for a long time, and I hope he understands that my infidelity was a mistake, not a reflection of how much I care about him. I know it won't be easy for him to move past it, but I have faith that he will, in time. Ultimately, I'm here because I want advice and guidance. I want to know how to rebuild trust and salvage what's left of our relationship. I know Jack's forgiveness won't come easily, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends and work toward a better future together. It's disheartening to see how quickly some people on social media judge me based on a few posts. Many have called me narcissistic, unfeeling, or entitled without truly understanding me or my story. They act as if they've got everything figured out, assuming that Jack will leave me and that I'll see things differently when he does. But relationships are far more complex than that. You can't fully grasp someone's life from a few online updates. The bills pile up faster than I can pay them, and I feel like I'm drowning in them. Every time I check my bank account, the numbers remind me of how far I've fallen. It's as if the life I once had with Jack, the stability, the future we talked about, is slipping further and further away. Mentally, I'm a wreck. I keep telling myself that things will get better, that somehow I'll pull through. But it's hard to hold on to hope when everything feels like it's falling apart. The weight of the guilt from everything I've done haunts me, and I can't seem to shake it. Every time I see Jack's updates, I feel like I'm being crushed all over again. I see him moving on, finding happiness, and I wonder if I'll ever get to that point. Will I ever find someone who looks at me the way he did? Will I ever feel whole again? He's so close to starting this new life with someone else, and here I am, barely keeping myself together. It's like I'm stuck in a loop, unable to escape the mistakes of my past. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to break free from it. I thought I could rebuild, but now it feels like everything is out of my control. I'm lost, and Jack is out there, living a life we had dreamed of with someone else.